What do you do when errors happen in your code? Let's talk about that. Before we get started, if you find this video useful or if you have any questions, I would love to hang out with you. I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also find me on Discord. The links for those are in the description down below. Now then, when dealing with errors in JavaScript, there are three tools you'll use most often: the stack trace, console.log, and try catch blocks. If you've been experimenting with the concepts covered in our previous videos, you have probably already seen the stack trace a few times. It's the big block of seemingly random text that appears right as your program crashes. Understanding how to read this will make your life immensely easier when trying to figure out why your program is breaking. When viewing the stack trace, the most relevant information is usually right at the top or very near the top, as you can see on the screen. First, you'll see the error itself, which can be so many different things it's not even feasible for me to detail every possibility here. Some errors are somewhat self-explanatory, like when you try to access an undefined variable or attribute. Other errors, like unexpected end of JSON input, aren't always indicative of the exact problem and require some Googling to figure out. It's very normal to Google issues that pop up, even for veteran developers, so don't feel bad if you don't immediately understand what you're seeing. The longer you do this, the more you will naturally be able to figure things out. Even then, you never will truly know it all. The next thing you'll see is a file path, followed by a set of numbers separated by a colon. This information is not always right at the top, so you may need to look for it within the stack trace. What you're looking for is a file name that is the same as any of the file names in your project. The numbers after the file name are the line of code in that file where the error occurred. Unfortunately, you will not always see one of your files in the stack trace when an error occurs. In my experience, when this happens, the issue is usually in a library or API you're using. Either what you're trying to do isn't supported by that library or API, or the feature of that API or library is outdated in some way. This is another case where many things can happen, so more Googling will probably be required. It's also worth pointing out that even when you are given a line of code where the error occurred, that is not always the exact source of the problem. That line is simply where everything broke down. Oftentimes, the source of the problem is somewhere else in your code, which leads to that line. So it's important to understand how your program is working so you can backtrack its logic and find the mistakes you've made up to the point where the program breaks. To help with tracking down issues in your code, one of the quickest and easiest things you can do is place console.log statements before and after significant logic blocks of your code. What this will allow you to do is quickly identify where things begin to deviate from the output you're expecting, as well as when certain steps of your code are not being run at all. In my experience, placing console.log statements has been very helpful with issues revolving around conditional events and loops. It's also not uncommon to print out the values of certain key variables as your program runs. As much as we would like to avoid errors in our code entirely, there are many situations where that simply isn't possible due to factors outside of our control, such as the user's internet going out or a company's server going down, among many other things. This is where try-catch blocks come in. They allow unavoidable errors that occur in your program to be handled by behaviors you define instead of simply crashing the entire program. When you have a piece of code that might throw an unavoidable error, wrap that section of code in a try block and follow that block with a catch block, as seen on the screen. Now, when the error occurs in the try block, it will be handled by the logic detailed in the catch block. It's worth noting that try-catch blocks must be paired together. This means you cannot have a try block without a catch block and vice versa. You will also notice that the catch block passes an error parameter. This parameter is necessary and useful because it allows you to define how you want specific errors to be handled based on the situation at hand. Specifically, the error object generated in the catch block has a name and message attribute. So in our example, calling error.name and error.message respectively will provide you with the specifics of the error. I've left a link in the description with a list of the possible error names you will encounter. And that just about covers the basics of error handling in JavaScript. You'll be doing a lot of this no matter how experienced you are in software development. You will also find that many errors you encounter are a complete mystery, and it's often helpful to treat them as such when you're trying to figure out how to resolve them. When things are particularly puzzling, remember this quote from one of the Sherlock Holmes stories. He said, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." In the next video, we'll take many of the concepts we've discussed in the previous videos and walk you through making your first program. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe so you can be notified of future videos. If you have any questions about anything covered in this video, feel free to catch me on Twitch or Discord, or leave your question in the comments. Thanks for watching, and stay awesome.